Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned the truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahushai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahushai. And pretty much in this video, I'm going to be going over Second Corinthians, the ninth chapter. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, ultimately, it's good to link the current events with the Bible prophecies to understand the time period you're living in. But that's something that we do on a regular basis. Being in this truth, you still got to keep your mind occupied in reading chapters and studying so that you can defend the gospel. How are you going to defend the gospel if you don't understand what particular chapters is going into, or know the origin and the meaning of words? Because these Christians and these unbelievers, they're quick to say, "Oh, Hebrew Israelites, you guys are a racist cult. This is the black KKK." But if you understand the scriptures, you will understand that when the scriptures say things such as, there's neither Jew nor Greek, it's talking about the same seed line of people. All right. That's why it ain't no difference. It's really that simple. You don't even got to overcomplicate it. It's talking about the same nation, the same group of people. It's just that you had the circumcision, which was Israelites that was raised up in Judea. Their parents knew that they were Jews. Their parents knew that they were Jews. And then you had the uncircumcision, which is the Israelite foreigners that was in a Gentile state of mind. All right. And the reason why they was in that Gentile state of mind is because of what? The previous captivity we was in, which was the Greek captivity under Alexander the Great and all of his generals. They wanted to Hellenize the whole known world. So it was against the law back during that time to keep the customs of the Jews, which resulted in what? Them younger generations and the generations after that getting in the Gentile state of mind, because they're under the strict rulership of these Edomites, whether it be the Greek or the Roman Empire. All right. So that's why it's good to read Apostle Paul's epistles so you can understand today what's going on, because we're in the revived Roman Empire in the form of America and the EU. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into it, but let's read this AI overview. All right. Now this is the AI overview of Second Corinthians chapter 9. It says, let me read this right here. Based on Paul's letters to the church. Now, anytime you read Apostle Paul's epistles in the New Testament, within the first 3 to 7 verses, it's telling you who is addressed to. The Israelites at this particular location, whether it be Rome, Corinth, Greece, Galatia, Ephesus. All right, all these different areas, these letters is written to Israelites at these particular locations. That's why Paul says, dear brethren or brothers and sisters when you go to a different translation. Because if you don't come from the same seed line or nation as Apostle Paul, how the hell are you his brother? How are you going to be his sister? Then it might say church. You got to actually go into the Strong's lexicon and go into the Greek word for church, which is ecclesia, and it has a lot of definitions. Now, one of the definitions is what? An assembly of Israelites. More importantly, an assembly of Israelite men. All right. You can't make yourself a spiritual Israelite or a spiritual brother or sister of Apostle Paul. You have to come from that seed line. All right. We understand that what? Seed comes from a man. Men are progenitors of life. The seed is the sperm. All right. So within a man's testicles lies what? Life, seed. Women don't bear seed. That's why a woman, she shouldn't date outside of her race, referring to the nation of Israel. All right. So it'll say things like dearly beloved, brethren, brothers and sisters, saints, church. Why does it always start off like that? Because it's telling you who the letter is written to, the Israelites, all right, at these particular locations. So the reason why it's called the book of Corinthians is because It's letters that's written to the Israelites in Corinth, Greece. It's that simple. It says to the church at Corinth, right? Which the church at Corinth, it was the most profane church. You know, Apostle Paul, he had a lot of problems dealing with the Israelites at Corinth, Greece. You know, a lot of them, they were backslide. They had women having authority over men, pretty much trying to adopt Greek and Roman ways with the scriptures. And that's part of what? Having that uncircumcised or Gentile state of mind that they had to repent from, the ones that's a part of the elect, right? So that's Paul's office. When you read Galatians, the second chapter, his office was to deal with the Israelite foreigners or the Israelites that was looked at as heathens, that was in the pagan Gentile state of mind. All right. To teach them about Yahweh, bring them closer to Yahweh and Yahweh, so that that middle wall of partition is broken down. Continuing on, it says Second Corinthians chapter 9 provides principles for Christians, right? Now, when you read Acts the 6th and the 11th chapter, who are the Christians according to the New Testament? They were Jews that followed the Messiah, which the word Christian or the Hamashiachim are what? Followers of the Messiah, Jews that followed the Messiah. But in today's terms, right, Christian is applied to what? In a general sense, all people. Anybody that converts, you know, to believing on the God of Israel or his only begotten son. But when you read the New Testament, that's not what a Christian is. You can't make yourself a Christian. All right. There's a difference between the Christians in the New Testament that were Jews that follow the Messiah versus today's Western Christianity. All right. That applies to everybody in a general sense from the man made religion that comes from the Roman Catholic Church. Right. So it says giving, framing generosity, right? Being charitable, you know, the paying tithes. It says as a cheerful, deliberate, and bountiful act of grace that results in abundant blessing, thanksgiving, and glory to the Most High. Because when you read from the Old to the New Testament, it tells you that charity covers a multitude of sins. Because you being charitable to a credible brother, right? That stops that man from wanting to backslide or break moral laws, statutes, or commandments, aka sin. All right. So when you help a brother out, you stopping him from doing something that could possibly destroy his life in order to obtain money. Right. Now let's go down here. It says the context for Paul's letter. It said Paul continues his encouragement of the Corinthians, which were Israelites in Corinth, Greece, participation in the collection for the impoverished Christians in Jerusalem, right? So who were the Christians that was in Jerusalem? Israelites. It says in Macedonia about the Corinthians' eagerness to give. He emphasizes the importance of them following through on their commitment to ensure they are ready. Paul sends messengers ahead of his arrival. And then it says Dogmatic overview, sowing and reaping. Paul uses an architectural metaphor stating whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generosity will also reap generosity. Right? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Jake, with our accents and stuff. And this quoting verse 6 in 2 Corinthians 9. This principle highlights the reciprocal nature of giving. It says generosity is an investment in the Most High's kingdom that yields a harvest of blessings, both spiritual and at times material. Giving is not a loss of resources, but a planting of seeds for a future harvest. Now it says cheerful giving. It says the central theme is that the attitude of the giver is as important as gift itself. Paul urges them to give according to their heart's decision, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for the Most High loves a cheerful giver. You know, when you do something in sincerity, you don't do a favor or you do something for somebody expecting them to give back. Or, you do something for somebody and then you rub it in somebody's face to try to belittle them, you know? It says, this reflects the idea that giving should be a joyful and willing act, not a forced obligation. And see, concerning, the camp that I'm in, Great Millstone, the apostles, they don't like shake us down for money. All right. They don't force us to give money. If you have it, you give it. If you don't, then it's fine. But you should help the ministry out one way or another financially, beginning with the apostles or just a brother in need in general. All right. Continuing on. But when you look at the other camps, they're being extorted. They're being charged, 20% for tights. They're being taken advantage of. They're being extorted outside of Great Millstone. All right. To whatever camps that it applies to. Continuing on. Because when you teach this gospel, you're supposed to teach it, from the heart, not expecting any money. Because Yahweh and Yahweh Shai ultimately is going to provide for us and take care of us as he's been doing. So now it says the Most High's provision and sufficiency. Paul assures the Corinthians that the Most High is capable of supplying all their needs and more so that they can be generous. The Most High is able to make all grace bound to you so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. This teaches that givers can trust in the Most High's provision rather than hold them back out of fear of lacking. All right. So that's pretty much it. Y'all get the point of the chapter. So now let's actually get into it. I may read the whole thing in the NLT. This is the KJV, and this is dealing with what the Most High gives the most, right? Let's just read this in the NLT. It's the NLT version, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and this is dealing with what the collection for Christians in Jerusalem, right? Now, what Christians are in Jerusalem? Jews that believed on Yahweh, right? It says 2 Corinthians 9 and 1, which were Israelites. It says, I really don't need to write to you about this ministry of giving for the believers in Jerusalem, right? It says, for I know how eager you are to help, and I have been boasting to the churches in Macedonia, meaning you had Israelites in Macedonia, right? Anytime Paul's epistles mention church, it's talking about an assembly of Israelites. It's not talking about Gentile nations, all right? If his letter says Gentiles, don't get caught up because it's written in an English translation. When you go into the word Gentiles, ultimately is referring to what? Gentile Christians, all right? Gentile Jews or Gentile Israelites that repented from following the way of the heathen. Now they believe on Yahweh's blood and sacrifice, aka the gospel. And now they can have the Holy Spirit. All right. It says, let me keep going. It says that you in Greece were ready to send an offering a year ago. In fact, it was your enthusiasm that stirred up many of the Macedonian believers to begin giving, right? So Paul is using the examples of the believers in Corinthians, right? Corinth, Greece, of Israelites that were cheerful givers, all right? And he's using that as an example to the Israelites that believe in Macedonia, right? Let's read again, NLT. It's more simplified. 2 Corinthians 9 and 2. For I know how eager you are to help, and I have been boasting to the churches in Macedonia that you in Greece were ready to send an offering a year ago. In fact, it was your enthusiasm that stirred up many of the Macedonian believers to begin giving. But I am sending these brothers, right, meaning Israelites, to be sure you really are ready, right? So Paul had men that was under him. So you could see the way how the camps are structured, right? It's structured just like how it was back in the ancient Roman Empire. All right. Paul, he had men under him, similar to how, Apostle to Paul and the apostles have men under them. Right. It says, to be sure you really are ready, as I have been telling them, and that your money is all collected. I don't want to be wrong in my boasting about you. It says, we would be embarrassed, not to mention your own embarrassment, if some Macedonian believers came with me and found that you weren't ready after all I had told them. So Paul, he was boasting in these particular Israelites. all right? Because they was coming into the faith, and as their faith was increasing, they was ready to start what? Helping the church out, helping the ministry out. So Paul was boasting about them. And ultimately, as a teacher, you get happy when you see new fruit, new Israelites that repented from that Gentile state of mind. And now, through faith and grace, they start to rehearse the laws, statutes, and commandments, which involves what? Helping out your teachers, helping out the ministry, helping out your fellow brother, right? It says, continuing on, if some Macedonian believers came with me and found that you weren't ready after all I had told them, so I thought I should send these brothers ahead of me to make sure the gift you promised is ready. So this is something that they promised. So Paul is like, look, to be sure, I know that you're serious, so I don't waste my time. I'm going to send some men over there to make sure you're going to keep your promise. Because as a man, you're supposed to keep your word. You're supposed to keep your promise. All right. Don't make promises you can't keep. Even the Most High is against that. When you read Ecclesiastes, I believe it's 5:4. That's one of my favorite scriptures. If thou vowest a vow to the Most High, and even in the form of helping your fellow brother out, and you don't come through on your vow, which you promise, then the Most High, he don't like that. Roughly paraphrasing when you read the verse. All right. Continuing on, it says, yep, verse 5. So I thought I should send these brothers ahead of me to make sure the gift you promise is ready, but I want it to be a willing gift. All right. Paul ain't forcing them to give money. It's similar to what Apostle Tahar be saying. It's similar to what the men of Great Millstone be saying, right? It says, not one given grudgingly. Yeah, don't give it grudgingly. If you don't have the money, don't give it. It's that simple. Ain't nobody gonna look at you like, you wicked and this and that, and oh, this person is cheap, or he's a nigga, or this and that. No, you give from the heart. You give from the soul. All right. Like I said, here at Great Millstone, when we teach this gospel and doctrine, we doing it because we fear Yahweh and Yahweh Shai ultimately, but ultimately through grace, we doing it through faith, not expecting anything. Because we have faith in Yahweh and Yahweh Shai that what? That they're going to supply us with all our needs, from the smallest things to big things, which is the spiritual things, right? Continuing on, because the scriptures say what? And Paul said it, all right? We walk by faith, not by sight. Continuing on, verse 6. Because you can have people that secretly be thinking like that. Like you paying your tights, right? But you doing it grudgingly. You doing it like, I don't, I don't want to give my money to these men. Or maybe you low key losing the faith. Maybe low key you don't even want to be in the camp, and you paying tights and you don't even believe. So if you're gonna pay tights, make sure you have the money to do that. It's not cutting into your savings, right? It's not cutting into like your bill money and stuff like that. When just do it from the heart. That's what Yahweh and Yahweh Shai would be pleased with. You doing things willingly, not grudgingly, holding it over somebody's head. Oh, I was in the camp and altogether I gave like 10,000. Now I can't get that money back. Don't be like that. All right. Do things through faith. Verse 6. Remember this: a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop. Meaning what? Whatever you sow, that's what you're going to reap. All the labor, all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the time and attention and dedication you put into this truth, you're going to reap it. All right. Abundantly. So Paul is making that reference or that comparison to agriculture, all right, and farming, which is a part of our culture, our way of life. All right. Scriptures talk about the early and latter rain, breaking up fallow ground, which is hard ground, right? So you needed that rain to break up the soil so that you could plant the crops. Continuing on, it says, verse 6, remember this: a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but one who plants generously will get a generous crop, right? And I can speak from my little experience in the truth, right? You know, when you help a brother out or you help an apostle out, just helping a ministry out in general, the Lord will bless you, sevenfold, twofold, sevenfold, right? You'll really get blessed. Continuing on, it says, you must each decide in your own heart, meaning your mind, how much to give. Exactly. Give what you can. Even if you give $1, it may not be much, but at least you contributed. All right. You could have kept that dollar for yourself. It says, and don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. All right. Oh, you see a brother, he give fucking $1,000 every week, $500, $100. You don't gotta live up to his standard. All right. You give what you can give. This ain't no competition. Oh, I'm more righteous than you because I know more of the gospel than you do. I know more of the breakdowns than you. I got a better physique than you. I got more money than you. Like that's a nigga mindset. But you have particular Israelites, they have this type of mentality and the truth. It says, and don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. You're supposed to be pressured to give your money. All right. It says, for the Most High loves a person who gives cheerfully. Yeah, you got to do it through faith. Whatever is not of faith is a sin. So Paul is using these examples to who? The believers in Macedonia. He's using the Corinthians as an example, right? It says, and the Most High will give generously, provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. All right. So that's what you're supposed to do. You're also supposed to share with others, other believers that believe in what you believe in, that's suffering like how you suffering, that's bearing their cross like how you bearing your cross. We're supposed to uplift each other. All right. You ain't supposed to have this stupid ass spirit of respect of persons and favoritism when it comes to being a cheerful giver. All right. Obviously, you got to vet certain men out because you got particular men. Every time you turn around, they uptight. So, like, what the hell do you do for a living? You know? But then there's brothers that really need the money and they could not get help because you have niggas that come into the congregation and they extorting and taking brothers' money when they don't really fucking need it. All right. And Yahweh Shah, he hate individuals like that. At least you repent. If you actually need the money, you take the money. You say I need help. But if you don't need no damn help, why the fuck you taking the money? It says, as the scriptures say, they share freely and give generously to the poor. Their good deeds will be remembered forever. And this reminds me of Cornelius, proving that he's an Israelite because he was a cheerful giver. All right. It says, verse 10, for the Most High is the one who provides seed for the farmer and then bread to eat. In the same way, he will provide and increase your resources and then produce a great harvest of generosity in you. It says, yes, you will be enriched in every way so that you can always be generous, right? So you might be doing good in the stock market. Me myself, I love to invest in gold and silver. That's kind of like my niche, like for the past 2 years, well, really longer than that, but I really started to like add on to my little collection I got. And if the Most High increase you in certain areas financially, help brothers out. Or brother, you good? And you look at the brother face. He may say something like, "Oh, I'm all right." He ain't all right because look at his body language. Look at his eye contact. He need it, but maybe he don't want to be a burden. All right. But at the same time, if you actually really need help, you gotta say, "I need help." We men at the end of the day, we all got egos, right? We want to do shit on our own. We want to just figure shit out. But that's why you have the brotherhood here for, all right? So that when you fall on hard times, you can have a brother to help you, all right? Scriptures say two is better than one. Every once in a while, I fall on hard times where I need the help of the brotherhood, and I always get help, right? Because it's all about proving your faith to your Shai. All right. You could do that in multiple ways. Ultimately, in the form of being diligent, spreading forth the gospel and doctrine to the elect. But Another way is being charitable, helping brothers out, not just any old Israelite out, right? But helping brothers out in your organization, your fellow Israelite, right? It says, yes, you will be enriched in every way so that you can always be generous. And when we take your gifts, and when we take your gifts to those who need them, they will thank the Most High. Because it's all about giving Yahweh Shah the credit. We able to be righteous and offer spiritual sacrifices because of Yahweh Shah's blood and sacrifice. That's how we made righteous through Yahweh Shah. Not because we give a bum a dollar. Not even because you help a brother out. All right. That's why you got to do things through faith, through grace. Continuing on, it says, so two good things will result from this ministry of giving. It says the needs of the believers in Jerusalem will be met and they will joyfully express their thanks to the Most High. That's going to increase their faith, right? It says, as a result of your ministry, they will give glory to the Most High for your generosity to them and to all believers will prove that you are obedient to the good news of Hamashiach, aka the gospel. It says, and they will pray for you with deep affection because of the overflowing grace the Most High has given to you. Thank Yahweh Bashim Shai, or thank the Most High for this gift. Too wonderful for words. All right. So that's pretty much it. If you're going to give, you're going to help somebody out, do it from the heart, but don't break your bank. All right. If you don't have the funds to help right then and there, don't force it. Because see, if you try to be over righteous and you do give, you're doing it through faith, but then you could be sincerely wrong because now you're in the jam. You know, you could have used that money to pay a bill, pay rent, but you wanted to be over righteous, you know? So that's pretty much it. Lord willing, he was edified. Shalom.